Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent experiences in business.
Learn what their cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
All right. Welcome, cohesive leaders. We are joined today, Ben-Jamin, Dr. Troy in the studio, by Mike Hruska from Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. We have a big Pennsylvania connection we discovered.
Heck yeah. Dr. Troy and I'm from there. Dr. Troy lived there for a little while. We want to start off by letting our audience know something that if they were to look you up on LinkedIn or you just send a resume, they would not know about you. So share something that would not find for you on any professional setting.
That I love food and eating food and talking about food. And my wife and I have a channel, #2 gastronauts.com. And we travel when we have time and eat street food and higher end food and visit food festivals and meet chefs and talk about things and prepare food and dry aged meat and teach people butchering and whatever we can find that's like education to connect around food. Why? It's the only thing that every single person has to do every day. And it's something that binds food, family, and culture together.
So what's your favorite food?
Oh, we got a lot of time, a lot of ground to cover on that one. If I had to just eat one thing only for the rest of my life, it would probably be short ribs.
Short ribs.
Wow.
Okay.
Short ribs, sous vide, and then seared short ribs. We have some great farms here. I know where my cows come from.
So when my wife and I travel, we try to do a cooking class in any of the cities or the countries that we go to. So how about you? Do you do cooking classes in other places as well?
Yeah, I learned to make guacamole on a beach in Mexico. I've learned to make a wide variety of dishes, and we'd love to do that. But that's what gives you that immersive, authentic experience when you're traveling.
Yeah, it really does. We did a Mayan experience and really cooked in that Mayan world, and just learned about some of the the foods and the tastes and how you put things together to make the taste that you have. And then when we were in Italy, the one thing we learned from this one chef was how you don't want to use competing flavors, but we tend to do that in the US. If you're cooking with onion, cook with onion. Cooking with garlic, cook with garlic, but you don't cook with garlic and onion.
It's interesting. One of the cuisines that I like to learn a lot about from the cooking style is Thai cuisine. It's so beautiful. There's so many good ingredients. And even though in some dishes you're not really cooking them, you're prepping them, they have a level of complexity that is really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, before we turn this into a cooking class, I guess we need to move on with our experience, right? What do you think? Huh?
I do love the street food, though. I love going and visiting street food everywhere, and some of my best memories are attached to street food. All right, Mike, love to learn something about you. Tell our audience some things that would describe you, behavior traits, character traits, values that you have that you either espouse to be, or if you were to leave a room, people would describe you. And these are things separate from any roles you have.
Sure. I think that gifts and serendipity and happenstance are something that are all around us all the time. I feel like the universe is always sending us messages. The question is, are we listening, to them? So when I was 6, my grandfather bought me a set of encyclopedias from the 1970s. That's about Benny. And I love to read. And when I was 7, he bought me a set from the 1940s, and that's about that many. And so, at that point in time, we didn't have that internet thing. So I had the library and had to figure out the Dewey Decimal System. And how did this thing change? Where did this thing come from? It was just extremely curious. Now, when I was 10, he bought me a guitar, and I started playing guitar. I'd been playing piano already. But I think that's, sort of a testament of things come to you. The question is, are you attracted to them? Do they bring you into your world and behaviors? And I think from my perspective, I used to say I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I do. I just want to do my 2 Gastronauts channel. That would be great, to just eat and talk about food and do those things. But technology is something that is been fascinating me forever. So when when I think about, you know, sort of life and, you know, my propensity towards the future, it's centered on passion and endless curiosity. I call it the naively curious question framework. It's like, what is that? How does that work? Where did that come from? And I think that curiosity is like my number one drive. I just want to understand things, see how things work. And then that intersects with like my interest in technology, because it's a whole beautiful thing that can make a huge difference in my life and in people's lives. And it does. It's something that causes us to change as people along the way. You know, being a musician, actually spending a good bit of time in my life in the music industry, number one thing for me is the band. You know, it's the team. It's the way that people come together. When I think about bringing people together, I kind of look at it as like, you know, the 4 people that can play Beatles songs are different than the 4 people that created the Beatles songs. And so if you want to emulate something else in the world, it's relatively easy to do. But when I think about people and working with people in any situation, it could be a community project, it could be running a TEDx event for a school or anything, I think it's about listening and finding ways that people play together and strength. And so I'm always trying to be curious, but also find out like, what's the thing that makes the band?
Yeah, good. So curiosity for you and passion would be your 2 descriptive words that people might use about you. So I love the curiosity aspect. It was, as a matter of fact, part of our core values for our Cohesion Culture company is curiosity is one of them. And we focus curiosity on intentionality. And I think that what you were talking about was how does it work and why does it work this way? Because we know that intentional curiosity moves things forward, moves conversations forward, moves project forwards. Having aimless curiosity where there is no direction for just getting and gathering information may be nice to know, but it doesn't necessarily do much good. So interesting about that. So what are some of the roles that you play now? And you can go back as far as you want, but just talk a little bit about some of the roles that you play and how that's impacted your leadership.
Yeah. So today I'm the CEO of a company called Baryons. Baryons is a spinoff from my 20-year-old company that I created after I left the government research space. I was a researcher at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, essentially information systems management and quality management, but in a really interesting government space. And so I before that, I was a professional touring musician for about 5 years. I started playing that guitar that my grandpa bought me. And when I was 15, met a few other people, had been playing with someone else since I was 10, and said, we're going to put a band together. We're going to get a record deal and we're going to tour. And that's what we did. And so after my freshman year of college, I quit college and because we had a distribution deal, and I spent almost 5 years touring around the country, writing, recording, producing, meeting amazing people. So, you know, grew up a interested scientist with the intention of going into deeper research, and said, well, I'm just going to take this little detour and be a musician for a while. And in that role, you know, obviously I was a member of the band, but also a business manager, interface with, you know, agents and label and all of those things. And like, it was a very interesting, very fuzzy role. I mean, like, where's the playbook, right? You know, for that, you know, things transpired, and I ended up quitting touring, went back to college, had a whole bunch of interesting jobs, like doing post-production and helping set up distance learning classrooms and other things, and said, all right, I need to get out. I need to get in research. I'm curious. I want to see what the lay of the land is, you know, of the world in some ways. So I spent 4 years at NIST, and had, once again, had a defined role I was supposed to take on, but I had a lot of freedom and flexibility. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I worked at my parents' convenience store from the time I was like 12 years old. And you know what you learn working in a convenience store? How can I help you? And so like, that's another piece that I kind of hold DNA wise. But my brother was a researcher there with me, and we said, we're going to make a company and we're going to be mercenaries for other people. And we're going to build emerging technology into competitive advantage with the human-centered focus. But at some point in time, we're going to see something that we could spin off into the world, that we could do the best that we possibly could. And that's what I'm doing today with Baryons, you know, as the CEO of that organization. I took about 10 plus years of my government funded research and spun it into a company that essentially has a cognitive thinking partner for people, with the idea that like everyone deserves a chance to flourish. And in the world of AI, we're missing the most important thing, which is the humanness of that. And so I've been the wearer of many hats through times. I run an entrepreneur meetup here, and you guys will be surprised. There's about 700 people in this entrepreneur meetup, and that's just a couple counties around Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I advise startups, I advise nonprofits. I'm on the board of nonprofits, so I get to be the wearer of the hats and keep myself quite busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. The one thing I've noticed about the music and your research is, when you mentioned food in the very beginning and talked about it being a common language, it's kind of like it's not really a language, but it's a commonality, right, that we all have. But I have often thought about all the things that we have in common, whether we speak the same language or not. And, the fact is, time is a consistent. Music is consistent. What notes mean here mean the same thing in another country. Math, how we approach numbers, 1 + 1 is 2, no matter where you are. You might speak a different language to say the word, the number differently, but still concepts are the same in that. So I think it's interesting. Science, things that we discover, it's the same all over the place. So I like how you've integrated that as a part of your leadership and a part of your life, which makes me really excited to hear what you have planned to share with us for your experience. I know you've prepped a little bit for this to get us ready, so the floor is yours. Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so I had a lot of momentum and spirit leaving college, because my whole goal was really like drive into research, learn landscape areas. But that was a goal, step one. Goal step two was start a tech company, start something that can actually help people in meaningful ways. And so when I left NIST in 2004, started a company called Problem Solutions. And probably, I don't know, 18 months into the company, we had secured some clients, did some other things. I had a friend that said, I really want to start a company too. And I said, oh, well, that sounds interesting. I'm pretty curious. I don't really know enough about the security technology space. Let's dig in. Oh, hey, partners, there's this opportunity. It could be really big. We should be investing from what we're doing in our core business, into a different business. Then it became side chain quests. Then it became, as we know, things unfold, and things unfolded in good ways, but things also unfolded as distraction. And the biggest lesson that I can think about taking away from that is intentional curiosity. Dr. Troy, you gave me a new, I need that on a new t-shirt, right? Because it was something I was curious about, and because I'm curious about a lot of things, but it was something that ultimately proved as a distraction and completely delayed my growth strategy for about 4 years with the other company. There were a lot of lessons learned along the way. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Oh, that's a good clip.
Yeah.
And helping your friends is extremely important. One of my mentors who really helped me think through that this was a side chain quest and you should be focused on what you're best at, knowledgeable at, said the people that can help you the most can least afford it. Or I'm sorry, the people that need help the most can least afford it. And he was a Fortune 500 CFO that I was lucky enough to get breakfast with a few times, and said, hey, I'm a really small company and you're a really awesome person and you're helping me find clarity and all of these things. I don't know how I can even pay you. And he said, I will help you, and in turn, you will help others too. And I think that's a really important lesson along the way. But the question is, what is help? Is help advice? Is help rolling up my sleeves and meeting with an entrepreneur 4 hours a month, or what it is? And that's really caused me to take this idea of essentialism and apply that, because through my entrepreneur meetup, through community, through startup community, through travel, I end up meeting a lot of people that are starting their own thing, or at some point have started their own thing, and they need that one little piece of advice, that one little pivotal knowledge nugget along the way.
So let's go back to this the distraction, the curiosity distraction. Give us a little bit more detail around the distraction. What was it that caused it to be a distraction? What was the actual distraction that you had because of this curiosity or this investing in this other company, which maybe not have been the best decision or choice that you made? Give us more detail around that.
Yeah, I mean, it was someone that I knew for a long time, from like my middle school years. They were working in the security space. They were working for another company, and they kind of outlined like, hey, there's a pretty big opportunity in this space. And this was, right around 2006, where video intelligence technology is somewhat the early underpinnings for what we would see, or, part of like what AI can really do well in the video space. I said, oh, this is interesting. I'll give you some advice. Then it turned into help set up the company. Then it turned into be partners in the company. Then it turned to drag my other partners into the company. Then it turned to drag our capital into the company and then bring additional capital. And suddenly it was like a 60% thing along the way. And that's when I really leaned into some of the advisors, or really, mentors in my space, because mentors are something interesting. Any successful people have mentors. If you ask them, like, what's their mentor? If we played Family Feud, you'd hear like intelligent, wise, empathetic, all these things. But as I reflect on all my mentor conversations, I think mentors help you see a future reflection of yourself that's so good that you have no choice but to actually become that in some ways. And so there were some hard conversations, and we started to really evaluate, like, do we want to be in this business? Do I want to be in this business? Or do I want to do what, is my real purpose and my real passion? And those are hard conversations. Those are hard conversations when, I brought my other partners to the table. I brought our capital to the table. I brought my time, attention, and focus to the table that distracted me from something that I already made commitments to, with other team members. And like, it's an emotional journey. You ask yourself the question, why, a lot.
Let's quantify this a little bit more. The distraction, the 4-year company, the partnership, what did it actually cost you? You're going down it a little bit, but let's actually quantify cost. And that's not just monetarily, but I want to hear all of those things. What was the cost to you personally, to the other company, to social capital, trust, things like that?
Oh yeah, we'll start on the emotional end, right? It's something that made me take a deep dive into, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Where am I really, going at the end of the day? How does this fit my sort of, massive transformational purpose to reach 1 billion people, 1 billion with technology in some ways? And I don't know that it does in a meaningful way. On the monetary side, on the other bookend, all in all, it wasn't $1 million, but it was on the upper end, being towards $1 million in lost capital, and essentially, having to liquidate the company and move it off into other people's hands and sell to customers and do the things at a super deep discount. So social capital, I still maintain a relationship with the person that was leading that effort, and I'm very supportive of what they're doing, and they're still doing it today. They're doing it on their own. They found their way. It was just a very expensive lesson, and it slowed down the execution of my tech company business plan for 4 years.
What did that cost you in that business?
Millions of dollars.
Okay.
I mean, if I look back at the revenue that we did, if I would have pulled things forward, it's north of 3 million. So it's a very expensive lesson. Good news is I'm still here, right? It's like we've got to learn from these lessons. And about 3.5 years ago, kind of parlaying that, had some other friends that I've known for a very long time say, we want to start a business, we need help. And I was very intentional about the things that I did, what my time commitments would be, what capital commitments would be, and those things. And today that business employs 80 people in 3 years. And so that expensive lesson made a really big difference in this future.
So that vetting and qualifying process that helped you with this new one, was that created after you turned your head back to your main company? Was it some vetting process through those mentors? Like, how were you able to apply that? And now is it a system that you now go through each time someone approaches you with an idea?
Yeah, I've kind of systematized this. When I hear something new, I do a 30-minute call with entrepreneur. Most of the time, these are on like Saturday mornings, Sunday afternoons, things along those lines. And then what I make at Baryons is an AI mentor, coach, consultant, and advisor. And I say, here's like 3 to 5 things that if you want to accelerate your journey, go talk to your Baryon about. And it's been really nice because I make people go away and do the work that they really need to do, which is sense making. As an individual, how do I interpret and construct the past to interpret and construct my future? That's why people want mentors. That's why people want advice. So actually I have tech that helps with that. And then when they come back, you say, cool, here's your framework, here's your blueprint. And I developed essentially what I call the startup project pack. It's all the things that you kind of need to figure out before you really do anything. And these are things that people need to internalize and work on. So I understand their direction. I help them get clarity and focus for their creativity. And then I give them the work. And really 2 out of 3 people don't come back.
Yeah.
Because everyone's in love with the idea of their idea and not the execution.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So I love the fact that you brought us back to mentors, advisors, and that, because what I wanted to explore a little bit is what was the advice that you were hearing along the way, now that you look back at it, right? Because you didn't maybe recognize it during the time, but now you can think back. What's the advice that you were hearing that you completely ignored?
Follow your true passion. What do you really want to do? Number 1 question to answer. Number 2, how do you know that? Number 3, how do you know that you know that? And number 4, when you get that, what will that give you? Those 4 questions came from sort of multiple experiences that I was having. Is like, knowing that you want something is one thing, but knowing how you know that you want that is really important. But also knowing, what am I going to get, as a result? And I think that goes back to what we're talking about with intentionality. It's like, is this in my windshield or not? Or is it just it's a nice mountain over there,
Yeah. So for recap that for us, just for a real quick clip, that would be, what those 4 questions are.
Yeah. What do you want? What do you really want? When you get that, what will that give you? And how do you know that you want that?
Good stuff.
Awesome. Because we end up getting a lot of squirrels, right? And you get a lot of distractions. So I think having that filter approach is a great way to decide, right? A lot of folks say, well, if it's right there, it's for me, right? And a lot of those shiny objects, they're the low hanging fruit. And some people think that things are supposed to be easy because they're right there. And most things that are easy are not often worth it, but everything that's worth it is not always easy. So it's a great approach.
Yeah. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be out of range difficult, but it should require some effort. Anything you're working on doing.
Well, I would say that, to clarify, a lot of folks confuse simple with easy. Sometimes a simple idea and a simple project is oh my gosh, how has nobody thought of that? Well, the process of developing that and making it easy for somebody else is the non-easy part.
Yeah.
And so that's a big, factor to understand that simple is not the same as easy.
And I love your approach to things. I think it's that scientific inquiry that you have, because you create structure around the things that you experience and may help you figure out what to do next. You're not afraid. I'm a process boy. I love a process, because when I see the process or I can follow the process, then I have an opportunity to be more effective in the things that I'm thinking about, the solutions I'm making, or the recommendations that will come from it, because I have a little bit of a process in the way I think. And I want to clarify that doesn't mean that you can't brainstorm. Brainstorming is still a process that you have, and you can still talk about a lot of things, but to be able to qualify the idea, to decide, okay, now that I have this, I vetted this out a little, now what's my next step, and being able to walk myself through a next step, and then a next step, and then the next step. That's what I mean when I talk about being process oriented.
Yeah, I think it's connected to process, and also something you said earlier, knowing what to do sometimes is knowing what to not.
Yeah.
Right. And like they're and getting that clarity, having that discernment about that. And you know what, I'm a student of design thinking. I love design thinking, and it really helps us divergently explore ideas and converge on what is worth doing, you know, in a meaningful way. And that's a phrase I actually got from one of my DoD mentors from the Pentagon back 15 plus years ago. What is worth doing?
Yeah. For our listeners, can you just give us a couple of sentences around design thinking so that we'll understand what you meant when you said that?
Yeah, design thinking, it really digs into this idea that like empathy is something that we really want to have when we start to think about our customers. Design thinking is a set of visual thinking tools, because words help us look the same direction. Visualizations help us see the same thing in some ways. And so design thinking is an amazing set of stuff. There's great resources out there from IDEO and Luma Institute, but there's a great book called Game Storming, much like the Grimm's fairy tales that they went out and collected all the stories and put them in one book. The authors of that book, Dave Gray and James McAnufo and SUNY Brown, went out and collected all the design thinking stuff and stuck it in one book as kind of a starting point. And it's a way to think about designing a better you, a better product, a better business, a better community, any of those things.
And I assume that it will keep you less distracted.
It will help you scope distractions to say, we're going to explore this stuff. Okay. And then there's an exercise called Moscow: must, should, could, won't. So good. Let's get the won'ts out of the way and talk about the musts and determine, like, let's negotiate on the shoulds and coulds.
Love it.
Love it. When I was actually in industrial engineering, then industrial management, and IDEO was one of my ideal companies to end up working for because of the way they think. And honestly, I feel I use a lot of that mindset. So I think we're very similar in that aspect, because I build games and experiences for folks, and to think about the picture and the tools of visualization. We actually talk a lot about that, preparing your mindset towards any endeavor. But the visualization tool is something that's often accepted in sports, but can be utilized to great avail in business. Right. And I don't think we focus on it enough, that you can think about the end product and how the person's using it. I use it in events. I think about how folks are going to flow into the event, where the trash cans, where the bathrooms, where the bottlenecks. And that's all a tool about design. And so I think anybody listening should know that your career, your steps and your things you're doing can be done a lot better if you take the time to think about it, other than just writing things out. So you said Game Storming.
Game Storming.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Industrial engineering is awesome. I also have a process and quality background. And when my brother and I started the company, we said, quality systems are not a document framework. They're a mindset. And design thinking, in the way that I think about it, is very similar to that. Like, I don't pull out empathy maps all the time for things. I just look at things through an empathy set of glasses.
Yeah, no, that's really great.
Good.
So how would folks get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, Mike Hruska, or Baryons.com.
And so for obviously Mike is Mike, and Hruska is Hruska. And then how do you spell the name of your company?
Baryons.
Okay, very good. Very good. Now, I know that you really prepared a lot for today. You shared a lot of really good information. What was a question you thought we would ask that we didn't?
What is one thing that I would tell my sophomore year high school self that I wish I knew earlier?
So what would you tell your high school self that you wish you knew earlier?
Be intentional about ABCD. The philosophy of always be connecting dots. I try to intentionally create value in my networks. When I meet someone new, trying to figure out what's their purpose, what's their passion, what are they looking forward to, and I'm listening to see if I can ABCD them in some meaningful way. I'm really intentional about it now, but I think I missed a lot of opportunities to connect people in the world. And if we just have the always be connecting dots philosophy, and then this comes from Aaron, Going Deep with Aaron podcast, because I was telling stories and he said, "Oh, you're an ABCD philosophy person." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds like the first 4 letters of the alphabet."
Well, just like you stole that, I am now stealing that.
Oh,
so,
and extra stealing over
yeah,
here.
so that's great.
Because I believe that it is so helpful when you use acronyms or stories or things that are easy to remember. My entire process of getting my PhD was all built around how can I associate information so that I'm able to make it applicable. Good news is the PhD doesn't require you to have to pass tests that are multiple choice and ABC items. You have to actually put application, so you got to be able to apply it. But to really do the application, you have to understand it first so that you're able to know what pieces you're applying. And so we've incorporated that a lot into the trainings and things that we do. So,
and I have said always be connecting, but I like the dots piece to add that other element there, right? So I like always be connecting with people, and then the dots are the other piece of that. So I absolutely love it.
Well, and the only way I've ever used it before is this conversation is an AB conversation. See you later.
Yeah, we'll always be closing in the sales world.
Yeah.
Good.
So
all right, we figured out how to get a hold of you. That's great.
Yeah. So we really appreciate you being a part of the podcast today, Mike. Thanks so much for bringing that wisdom, that mentorship, that advice forward. Hope our folks will be able to check you out and spend some time with you. So we're going to close out our podcast like we do all of our Cohesion Culture sessions with this simple mantra: you don't have to know everything.
You just need to be teachable.